Hello, everyone. A very, very good evening. And this is pretty much the start of the weekend because it's a Friday. And I'm really happy that you guys are joining in today for an exclusive conversation on anxiety management. Well, I am not an expert and neither is my guest, but he has done his research and he is also going to share this from his own experience. And more importantly, I think from his experience of being an entrepreneur and taking enough and more risks in his life, whether it is personal life or more importantly, professional life. I'm talking about Agnelorajesh of St. Angelo's VNCT Ventures, which is India's biggest villa developers. Agnello, so nice to have you on the show.
Annie, the pleasure is all mine. I enjoyed my show with you last time, and here we are back again to do one more show and interact with the audience on a very interesting and exciting topic, which is the need of the hour.
Absolutely. You know, this is also a topic that is close to my heart, and I've had many experts on my show that I do afternoons with Annie on 94.3 Radio 1. Anxiety management in a situation like we are in today, which is the pandemic. It is an apt topic that we must talk about because everybody is going through anxiety of the unprecedented times and how we are clueless about the future. Can you explain anxiety management?
So, Annie, to begin with, what you announced is right. We are not experts, nor you, nor me. We are not doctors in this sector, but we have got our own personal experiences, our own personal preferences, and the research that I have done on this particular topic because this is something which is impacting every human being on planet Earth. So, I would like to begin by saying that the largest part of what we call personality is determined by how we have opted to defend ourselves against anxiety and uncertainties, the times that we
Right.
are currently facing. But before suggesting a remedy for anxiety management, we first need to understand as to what anxiety really is. And I would like to explain it from my perspective. So you can definitely do your research on whatever I share today on this show. But what's going to be discussed by me on my side are my perspectives on the research that I have done and on the conversations that I have done with a few experts. So, any anxiety is our body's natural response to stress. And it's a feeling of fear or apprehension about what's to come. Every day we wonder when is the vaccine coming? When is the vaccine coming? So, that also an apprehension. Like the first day of a school or going to a job interview or giving a speech in front of thousands of people today through digital mode, always, obviously. These kind of activities also cause more people to feel fearful and nervous. So, in simple terms, when we feel fearful and nervous about something, we become anxious. And that's what I talk about anxiety. I would love to explain further, a little bit more further. A big event or a built up of smaller, stressful life situations may trigger our anxiety. For example, a death in the family, work stress, or an ongoing worry about finances, a disagreement within a family or with our friends, something related to our health, something related to the health in the family. These situations might trigger anxiety. We
Right.
also have daily stress like traffic jams or like missing your train or missing a flight, which can cause anxiety. But long term or chronic stress can lead to long term anxiety and worsening symptoms as well as other health problems. According to me, Annie, stress can lead to behaviors like skipping meals. A lot of people become alcoholic, or a lot of people experience not getting enough sleep. In the short term, anxiety increases your breathing and heart rate. This is a very physical response in preparing you to face a intense situation. What I have seen and what I have read about Annie is that anxiety attacks usually peak within the first 10 minutes, and then they rarely last up to 30 minutes. But during that short time, you may experience terror so severe that you feel as if you have lost control. So that's my take on anxiety and anxiety management.
You know, when you talk about anxiety, and which is a culmination of stress that has been hanging in your mind for a long period of time, it obviously gives you the feeling of losing control, like you mentioned. Uh,
Yes.
you know, it can also result in harming someone or maybe harming yourself. So, if we've got to dig a little deeper, what are the types of anxiety disorders and what are the symptoms?
Well, Annie, yes, anxiety is bad. You see, I'm not a medical professional. However, based on my study of the subject, I can share some, generalized anxiety disorders. One of the disorders I would consider is, excessive anxiety and worry, which occurs frequently for days, weeks, and months about a number of events or activities. Now, it can be related to work or health or environment related issues. In fact, the person finds it difficult to control the worry. So that's nothing but, absolute anxiety. The anxiety and worry are also associated with a few other symptoms, like, for example, you might feel restlessness, you might be easily fatigued, or you might be having difficulty in concentrating, or your mind going blank at sometimes, or it can be increased irritability. We have experienced irritability when, we are just very irritated when somebody will ask us something. We also experience muscle tensions when we are stressed or when we are anxious. And definitely, one of the common things to be impacted by anxiety is sleep disturbances. We find difficulty falling to falling sleep, or we are restless and we have very unsatisfied sleep even after we have slept for almost 6 to 8 hours. Now, we all have experienced these symptoms or disorders at some point or the other in our life. Now, just imagine the mindset of people who have to perform tasks which are legally risky, like an operation done by a doctor, or a landing by a aeroplane pilot, or a last over of a match which needs 10 runs to win and the last batsman is at the crease, what we are experiencing these days in the IPL matches. So these are absolutely anxious and stressful moments, Annie. And how they are managed and handled will define the person and his personality, Annie.
Absolutely. It's important for us to be self-aware when it comes to, managing anxiety is also something that you're trying to say through the details that you're now getting into. Can we differentiate between normal feelings of anxiety and anxiety disorders then, Agnello?
Well, yes, sure, Annie. Annie, knowing the difference between normal feelings of anxiety and an anxiety disorder, and whether it requires self-care or medical attention, can help a person to identify and treat the condition accordingly. Now, anxiety is a problem when it becomes overwhelming or unmanageable, and it comes up very unexpectedly, surprisingly, just like our current pandemic scenario. It's so unexpected. Nobody had planned for it. Nobody has a
Right.
past experience about managing something of this scale and this nature. Now, anxiety itself is not a medical condition, but a natural emotion that is vital for survival when an individual finds himself facing danger. We get very anxious whenever we feel emotionally that we are facing danger.
Yeah.
Anxiety disorders are mental illnesses that have very big impact on your life, and that definitely needs professional assistance. People may avoid going about their daily lives in order to avoid anxiety, is what we generally experience. Now, an anxiety disorder develops when this reaction becomes exaggerated or out of the proportion to trigger that causes it. And there are multiple triggers that we experience in life. We have seen in many movies that where a director of a movie has displayed a villain with such a strange mental disorder, just because he wants to create the impact of the villain being a very dreadful person, as dreadful as possible, to create excitement and drama in the movie. While anxiety can cause stress, Annie, it is not always a medical condition, but in extreme cases, you compulsorily have to go to a professional medical practitioner who might give you solutions to your, anxiety disorders.
Absolutely. It's like how Mrs. Neerja Birla and her daughter Ananya Birla keep saying it's okay to be okay, and it's extremely important to take help, more importantly. How do I
Absolutely.
know? How do I know when anxious emotions have started to occur out of control with their trigger?
Well, Annie, the clearest indication that when anxiety is becoming problematic, it becomes increasingly difficult to do things that a person would be doing, relatively easily under a normal circumstances. Now, this may mean talking in front of a group of people, or making a sales pitch, or attempting to draw a picture as an artist. Now, Annie, if anxiety starts to get in the way, the performance absolutely drops, your focus fails, and the confidence becomes low. So, these are absolutely some of the triggers that are actually visible, and we can take a note of that and act on it accordingly.
Absolutely. I think what's also extremely crucial is that we need to not shy away from taking help,
Yes,
and also keep an open discussion conversation always on at home, because I think the first set of people that will support you in this are your family members. Um,
absolutely.
you've defined it in great detail about the anxious state, and now the viewers and listeners are curious to know about the self help measures to deal with anxiety.
Well, sure. It will be a pleasure to share something that I've researched. While for anxiety disorders, I strongly recommend counseling from a medical professional. As far as
Right.
anxiety management is concerned, I'm happy to share with all of you the various proven anxiety management techniques that we keep using. We research on the net and we get some good anecdotes, some good ideas on how this can be done. Now, for better understanding, I have divided these techniques into absolutely three parts. The first part is the physical provocation that constitutes the terror of panic, which we face so easily. Like we become physically against some physical provocation, we come into a terror of panic. We suddenly get panic stricken. The second condition would be the wired feelings of tension that correlates with being stressed out. I'll repeat, the wired feelings of tension that correlates with being stressed out. And the third state would be the mental anguish of reflection. This is very common. This keeps happening all the time. What do I mean by the mental anguish of reflection? That it's a situation where a brain just doesn't stop thinking distressing thoughts. Many people go through this very regularly. So, the third state I would like to say is the mental anguish of reflection.
All right. So there are three different states that one can go through, and I don't think people who are in an anxiety state can actually assess themselves so well. But being aware about this will always help people who might be struck by something like this, or if there is anything amiss, you can read into it and maybe offer help. Because at this point in time, what anybody who is anxious or stressed out needs to be talked to. They need to know that there are people
Yes,
around them who care about them. So
absolutely.
how will you explain physical provocation that you just spoke about, and what can be the solutions then?
So, any physical provocation causes the heart thumping, your pulse racing. Sometimes people feel very dizzy or they feel short of breath. These are
Yes.
symptoms of physical provocation. Even high levels of anxiety can cause physical tension in your jaw, in your neck, in your back, as well as a very strong emotional feeling of feeling doomed or dreadful in the core of the stomach, which will set
Yeah.
off a very strong mental search for what might be causing it. We all have experienced this at some point or the other in our life as children during exams, many multiple situations. Now, a solution can be to manage your body well. Since it is a physical provocation, a solution can be to manage the body well. For example, by eating right, uh, definitely alcohol, nicotine, sugar, or caffeine is not a solution. So we need to avoid all of these elements.
Right.
Exercise can be very helpful. Just a 45 minutes to an hour of an exercise per day can dramatically help you to control the physical provocation of stress management or anxiety management. We need to have an ongoing self care. We need to really understand our physical state and our mental state at all times. We need to do our own, self talk about our well being. Sleep cannot get compromised. We need to absolutely sleep well and for the right number of hours and peaceful sleep. Also, what we need to consider is the hormonal changes with the various stages in life. So, these are all related and associated to the physical provocation of stress. Now, second solution can be to breathe. Breathing will slow down or stop the stress response when you're physically provoked for being, anxious, or when there is an anxiety attack on you. Do the conscious deep breathing for about 1 minute at a time. You can do this 10 to 15 times a day, just 1 minute. And every time you're waiting for something like the phone to ring or an appointment or a kettle to boil the water that you want to have for a green tea, or waiting in a line for something at the visa office or the passport office, you can do the breathing exercise. It relaxes your body fantastically well. So, Annie, what I do is, even before getting on the show with you, I do that 1 minute breathing exercise. In fact, I do it 8 to 10 times in a day very consciously. The third solution that I can think about is being mindfully aware. Now we need to close our eyes and breathe, noticing our body, how the intake of air feels, how the heart beats, what sensations you can feel in your gut. This can be experienced and it will make you feel very different, Annie. Now, with your eyes still closed, purposefully you need to shift your awareness away from your body to everything that you can hear or smell or feel through your skin, everything around you. So, from your body, now you are wandering around your body. You
Yeah.
need to shift your awareness back and forth from your body to what's happening around you. Now you can always control what goes on outside. You can always control to a certain extent, but most of the times you can't control what goes on outside. But you can always 100% control what goes inside your mind, what goes inside your heart. You can always control that. So you will learn in a physical way as to what aspects of the world you can control, internal or external. You need to make that choice. Internal is in your total control. External, you might be successful to a certain extent. So giving internal focus and control, you can stop making the catastrophic interpretations that bring on a panic or worry. Many a times, Annie, our anxiety is much beyond in proportions to the actual danger in front of you. We just magnify the panic and get more worried. It allows you to feel more in control and mindful of the present when you are mindful about what's happening inside you and what you can control around you. So these are some of the methods on where you can control physical provocation of anxiety.
Absolutely. I think it all comes down to how is it then this, which is an important aspect of our lives because it's a neural response that every human being goes through, and especially when we are in sort of this race, which now has slowed down, thankfully, we always need something to fall back on. And when we find we don't have anything to fall back on, we immediately stress out and feel very anxious about it. So, how then, Agnello, do you think you can explain the management of tension and stress, and what can be the suggested solutions there?
So any tension and stress needs to be managed well. Everybody, there is nobody in this world who can say he doesn't have tension or he doesn't have stress. Some people have just mastered the art of managing the tension and the stress. Many people with anxiety search frantically for the reasons behind their symptoms in the hope that they would solve whatever the problem is. It might be solved, it might not be solved, but we need to manage our tension and our stress. But since much of their high tension isn't about a real problem, they are wasting their time running around an inner web of perpetual worry. You might have friends, I have friends who are perpetually worried for everything, for whether it is raining or if it is not raining or if it is sunny or if the trains are not operational. They are in a perpetual state of worry. So even if the tension stems from psychological issues or other causes, there are ways to eliminate the symptoms of worry. And some of the methods are helpful for diminishing chronic tension. There are some simple methods. There are some simple ideas with which you can do that. So let me share some ideas which I use in my personal life. Like idea number one that I would like to say is don't listen when worry calls your name. Don't listen. That's it. It's what is internal that can be controlled by you. You don't have to control your thoughts. You don't have to control your thoughts, Annie. You just have to stop letting them control you. What happens when you are stressed or in tension? The thought is controlling you. So you have to control your thoughts rather than the other way around. This is one of the easiest steps that I take. Now, this feeling of tension comprises a state of absolutely low grade fear. Okay. So which also can cause other physical symptoms like a headache, a joint pain, or people also experience ulcers. All that is because of the stress and the tension that you are not able to manage. So the feeling of worry is just the emotional manifestation of physical tension. That is the feeling of worry. So this don't listen method decreases the tension by combining a decision to ignore the voice of worry and with a cue for the relaxation state. You do the breathing exercise and absolutely get into the relaxation state. Or To stop listening to the command to worry, you can say to yourself, it is just my anxious brain firing wrong. If you can say this statement to yourself, that it is just my anxious brain firing wrong, again, the feeling in your mind will change. Now, this is the cue to begin relaxation breathing, which will stop the physical sensations of dread and worry that trigger the radar, and we get stressed and we get tensed. My next idea that I would love to share, Annie, is next idea is knowing but not showing your anger. So you know you're angry, but you decide not to show your anger. So when you fear anger because of past experience, the very feeling of anger, even though it remains unconscious, can produce anxiety. Anger management is critically important. When you get angry, you are actually inviting stress and tension into your life. To know you're angry doesn't require you to show that you're angry. If you're angry, fine. Please don't show it to the world. When you show it to the world, it multiplies your stress and tension. And a simple technique that I would love to share. Next time you feel angry or anxious, you should just sit down and write as many answers as possible to a particular question that I enjoy doing. If I were angry, what might I be angry about? Suddenly, when you write the answers, you will realize that this is too petty a topic for you to be angry about. What is there so much to be fussing about when it is not important at all? But you need to restrict your answers to single words or brief phrases. It cannot be paragraphs and pages where you become an author and start writing a book on your anger. It should be words or small phrases. Now, this may open the door to get some insight into the connection between your anger and your anxiety. So if you're able to correlate that, you will be able to, really control your anger and in turn control your stress, tension, and anxiety. I have another idea, which is to have a little fun. Okay, good humor is a great tonic for mind and body, Annie. It is the best anecdote for anxiety and depression. It is not only an anecdote, it is also an antidote for anxiety and depression. It is a business asset. It attracts and keeps friends, laughter and fun and cracking jokes. It's also a business asset. I'm an entrepreneur, so I would love to always discuss from the business angle of life. When you're humorous, it lightens human burdens. It is the direct route to serenity and containment. You feel happy, you feel satisfied. When you feel happy, everybody around you starts feeling happy. I will say that laughing is a great way to increase good feelings and dodge the tension. In fact, there are laughter clubs which we are all aware about. We have also taken our experiences at laughter clubs. So, laughter is a great medicine. Getting in touch with fun and play, that is not easy or serious, but it releases your stress and tension. Any a therapy goal could be simply to relearn what you had fun doing in the past and prescribe yourself some more fun. A lot of people have stopped becoming happy because they have stopped enjoying the fun that they used to have in their childhood or in their past. So these are some of the ideas that I toy around with to manage anger, which ultimately leads to your tension, which ultimately leads to your stress, and which ultimately gives you the anxiety that nobody enjoys.
Absolutely. I guess keeping a paper and pen or your personal diary handy at all times is a very good idea because you can always write down points that you're happy about as well as anxious about, and it does help release quite a few of those stressed emotions or thoughts, and you do feel good. So, that has been insightful. What do you mean by the mental anguish of reflection? If you can, give us such some suggestions.
So, Annie, the mental anguish of reflection is a very interesting concept. When I researched and I realized that, yes, I have gone through this, all would have gone through this at some point of time. This method, Annie, actually deals with the difficult problem of a brain that won't stop about distressing thoughts or where worry suffocates your mental and emotional life. We go on and on and on and on. Our mind, you get me? The maximum communication that a human being does is with himself. And there are some people who cannot control about stopping to think about distressing thoughts. Now that's a problem. Now these worries hum along in the background, generating tension or sick feelings and destroying your concentration, and diminishing the capacity to pay attention to the good things in life. So this is what I call as shooting in your foot, that you don't need enemies because your mind has become your enemy, because you are not controlling your mind is controlling you. Therapy does not need to focus on any specific worry, but rather on the act of worrying itself. So worrying itself is a big problem. So let me share some methods, that are most effective in eliminating rumination or reflection. The one idea that I would love to share is just turn your mind off. If your mind keeps on running and starts processing many negative fears in your head, just turn off your mind. If a reflecting brain is like an engine stuck in the gear, we have all experienced that when we were learning the four-wheeler. Today you have got automatic vehicles, but people of my age will understand what I'm saying, that if a reflecting brain is like an engine stuck in gear and overheating, so when your gear gets stuck, your car overheats and makes a very loud and a very bad noise. So it is like it's like an engine stuck in the gear and overheating, and then slowing or stopping. When you are stuck with your gear, you slow and then you stop, and it gives a chance to cool off. So that's what you need to do with your mind also. Just shut it off. The goal of turning it off is to give the ruminative mind a chance to rest and calm down. For the audience, ruminating means thinking very deeply about something. That is what I'm meaning by using the word ruminating. I'm sure this is not a very common vocabulary that we use in our general conversations. So ruminating means thinking very deeply about something. So sit quietly with your eyes closed. Focus on an image of an open container ready to receive every issue on your mind. Just keep that container open and just pop in all the issues that are there in your minds, and see and name each issue or worry, and imagine putting it into this container. Now do this actually by writing it on the paper. These are all practical exercises. When no more issues come to the mind, put a lid on the container and place it on a shelf or some out of the way place until you need to go back and get something from it. Friends, trust me, once you have the container on the shelf, you invite into the space that is left into your mind whatever is the most important current thought or feeling, because you have to actually eliminate your wrong worries or thoughts on a piece of paper. Write it on the piece of paper, put it in the container, empty your head, and start thinking about the most important current activity to be done or the most important feeling that you want to enjoy. At night before sleep, invite a peaceful thought to focus on while drifting off into sleep. It will give you good dreams also. So we also need to understand that there needs to be a persistent interruption of reflection. Reflective worry has a life of its own. It's not continuous. It has a life of its own, consistently interfering with every other thought in your mind. So you need to learn how to control that. And the key to changing this pattern is to be persistent with your attempts to use thought stopping and thought replacement solutions. You have to not only stop your thought, but you also need to replace your thoughts. It is important to attempt to interrupt the pattern every time you catch yourself reflecting. So you have spent a long time establishing this pattern, and it will take persistence to wear it down. It cannot happen overnight. You have to be persistent in stopping your thoughts and replacing thoughts with good thoughts, worrisome thoughts to be replaced by the good thoughts. So this is something that I do, and thought stopping is a smart idea. Thought replacement is another smart idea. Substitute the thought with a reassuring, assertive, or a self-accepting statement after you have managed to stop the thought. My next point, Annie, would be worry well, but worry only once. Worry as much as you want in that span of time of 10 to 20 minutes or 30 minutes, then kill the topic and move ahead in life. Solutions will fall in place. Resources around you will help you to build solutions which will take you out of that situation.
Right. So when experts do say that you have to stay positive, it's not an easy job. There is a bit of an effort you have to put in. And so if you're able to, put things out, it'll be very good. So how do you conclude this topic, Rajesh?
So Annie, this has been a very interesting topic. In fact, before I come to any show, I make sure that I do a lot of research. I talk to people and I get involved with the subject. I bring out my personal experiences of what I feel, because feelings can be explained only once you have felt them. You cannot explain if you have not felt them. So whatever I discussed with you today in this show, are feelings which I've absolutely experienced in my personal life. So let me conclude. Nothing can bring you peace but yourself. You yourself can bring yourself the peace. Now, these skills which we discussed do require patience and determination. However, Annie, once learned, people gain a lasting sense of their own power and competence in working actively with their own symptoms to conquer anxiety through their own efforts. This is all self practice, and you yourself have to solve your own challenges, which always happen all the time in your mind. In fact, any inner peace begins the moment you choose not to allow another person or event to control your emotions. I love this to say, I always love to say this, that inner peace begins the moment you choose not to allow another person or another event to control your emotions. We should not think negative. Negativity is one of the breeds for anxiety and stress and tension. Please do not anticipate trouble or worry about what may never happen. There are so many things when we become anxious, what we think can harm us, actually they never happen in life, and it just passes by. But we have troubled our mind, our physical body, by being over anxious about something which never even happened. And friends, no amount of anxiety can change the future. You can be anxious to whatever extent, but it cannot change your future. And no amount of regret can change your past. So you have to forget about your past. It is not going to harm you anyway now, because it is already gone and done and gone. And no amount of anxiousness can change your future. What has to happen will happen. So if you want to conquer the anxiety of life, please live in the moment. Please live in the breath. This is my message to the audience from my personal experiences and whatever little bit of research that I did before I came onto the show with RJ Annie.
Thank you so much. That's Agnelorajesh Taide, owner founder of St. Angelo's VNCT Ventures. Different topics every time that he comes on the show and discusses. Thank you so much for this today. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the inspiring and motivating words on anxiety management, Rajesh.
Thank you so much, RJ Annie. It's always a pleasure interacting with you and enjoying the questions that you post. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening and see you again. And
See
audience,
you
thank you
again.
so much. Thank you so much, audience. I've seen so many comments in over here on the screen, and
Right,
I will make
right.
sure that that I will respond to every comment before I go to sleep tonight. Thank you so much for being with us.
They've all been very happy with your advice, and I believe they are going to pay heed to it. This is me, Annie, also signing off from the show, from the chat. Thank you once again. Thank you, Rajesh. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.